It's now 7:36. We will call the meeting to order. There we go. All right. Do you need one as well? Right.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, why not? First, we have to approve our previous minutes, our agenda minutes. Those are accessible online, so we have those recorded for anyone who's ever interested in listening to those minutes. But based on our conversation last time and those minutes, do we approve the agenda? Can I get
move to approve?
Move to approve? All in favor? Any opposed? All right, we'll move forward then. Old business?
Old business. So last meeting, we selected October the 17th for a open forum with Chancellor Montemagno. After that, I communicated to the Chancellor that October 17th was the appropriate date for an open forum. The Chancellor's office subsequently responded to me by saying that the Chancellor would not be participating in any open forums with students. Instead, he will be scheduling an open forum with the entire university community to address any concerns as a follow-up to his State of the University address. When I asked for additional information concerning this campus-wide open forum, I received no response. So, as of right now, I have no information concerning the potential open forum from the Chancellor, and our student forum has been canceled. Any questions about that? New business?
So, new business, we have an ad hoc committee on graduate and professional student mental health.
I got it.
You got that? All right.
So, as per the GPSC Constitution, the Executive Committee may, by resolution, establish ad hoc committees for specific purposes. To this end, the Executive Committee has resolved to establish an ad hoc committee on graduate and professional student mental health. So, moreover, as it is within the authority of the executive officers, namely the President, to appoint members to said committees, I hereby appoint Donnie Mann, or I'm going to mix both of your last names up, because Donnie McMahon and Lonnie Mann as co-chairs of the committee. After our first meeting, both of them approached me expressing interest in any initiatives that GPSC was going to do with regards to mental health or any such subcommittees. To that end, I felt they'd be best chairing said committee. So.
Great, and I guess people can approach you after this meeting if you're interested in serving in that committee. Please stick around so they can get your contact information and let you know about their first meeting. Okay.
Clay?
Yeah.
Graduating?
Sure.
Wait, no. Yeah, satisfaction. That's you.
Yeah. All right. Okay, so also an ad hoc executive committee that we are creating is to address and conduct essentially a survey of the graduate and professional students. Part of what you received today, that second sheet that was along with the agenda, that is related to these efforts of this new committee that we're establishing. If you can, please fill that out and either deliver that to one of us or somehow leave it behind. You don't need to and shouldn't really put any sort of identifier, name, whatever, anything on it. It's just fill it out in the instructions that are on there, essentially ranking those first 5 in some order, and then choosing an option on that subsequent question. And essentially that's to work towards what we're doing as far as creating a survey. And so did you want me to do the presentation? Let's see. You got it up on that? Cool. So, through a number of discussions that we've had, we have decided to create a committee for building and then executing a rather comprehensive survey of graduate and professional students. And so you can probably kick it to the next slide or what have you. I don't listen.
I'm not actually clicked on it.
Yeah.
I like technology.
essentially, the purpose of this is to continue our efforts at GPSC in the sense that we are the representative body and we engage in advocacy for graduate and professional students. And so, in continuing with that, we're looking to put students first as we ensure that the mission of SIUC is going on fulfilled and fulfilled for all persons. And then as well as that, we're just looking for opportunities to continue to improve on our efforts in advocacy here in GPSC, increase that effectiveness, increase the areas in which we can be effective, as is sort of our tireless effort and pursuit and duty, really. And so, insofar as that's the purpose for this survey, trying to shape out a mission for it. You can advance there.
I would.
Oh, too far.
There you go.
So in general, this mission would be to develop and conduct a thorough survey of graduate and professional students' overall conditions, experiences, and levels of satisfaction in their studies at SIU. So in trying to fulfill that mission, a few key points in the sense that this survey we want to develop in a systematic, representational, and comparative fashion. Essentially what we actually ask is a part of this survey, the way that it's conducted, the types of analyses that we're going to engage, doing it systematically, doing it representationally of our total student body, graduate and professional students, across a number of different factors, and then using all of that data to actually do some more comparative analyses, more comparative analysis. And so with that data, we can then employ it to address graduate and professional students' needs in targeted ways. Essentially, with the information that we'll be able to gather as a part of this survey that we're going to be developing, we'll actually be able to address specific problems or specific success or specific challenges, whatever those circumstances are, across what is ultimately a really diverse collection of programs, departments, colleges, and schools. And so in some of the data that we're looking to develop and gather as a part of this survey, then when we engage in our advocacy and our representation as a council, we'll actually be able to target relative to the information that is gleaned from this survey. And then also, thinking about that data, thinking about this survey, the way that it's actually being conducted, being able to then employ that survey longitudinally to ensure accountability. Essentially, if we identify a problem, if the problem is identified within the information that we gather, that we can actually see what's going on, essentially conceptualizing this in the sense of an annual survey that takes place, and we can track changes. We can actually hold parties accountable. So whether or not things are improving, if perceptions or expectations are problematic within our general body of students. So going on then with the next one, what we're talking about is a snapshot of graduate and professional students. And so in trying to gather a snapshot, one of the guiding principles to sort of direct our action in creating the survey is the mission statement of the university itself. And the idea that SIU embraces a unique tradition of access, opportunity, inclusive excellence, innovation and research creativity, outstanding teaching focused on nurturing student success. Essentially all of these aspects of that sort of focus on the student. And so in trying to think about how that adds up to something we can use as a survey, thinking about what fulfills this mission for graduate and professional students, we sort of so far have developed these 5 domains essentially that structure graduate and professional student experience. And so some of this is what will be in flux and determined as a part of the committee work itself. But generally these domains, thinking about scholarships, so research, training, thinking about academics, our coursework, what kind of resources we have to be academically successful, your professional experiences, whether that's teaching as a graduate assistant, whether that's doing research as an RA, whether those are internships associated with your professional program. Also professional development in the sense of the mentorship, the types of experiences, whether those are conference attendances, any number of different opportunities in developing as professionals, whether it's academic or a professional career, and as well as socioeconomic status and conditions. So in that sense, literally just daily life as graduate and professional student, as well as sort of the different institutional supports, and how effective, how efficient, how much value are graduate and professional students getting out of that. And so in trying to make sense out of those domains and building a survey that can speak to those aspects of graduate and professional student life and its association with the mission of the university. In general, some points here, and thinking about how we're going to actually fulfill the mission of doing a survey of this kind. In general, we are considering structuring the survey in a way that models itself after the General Social Survey that's conducted at NORC at the University of Chicago. in the sense that we'll have a comparative and a systematic approach to looking at these issues. We're going to have multiple levels of analysis. In that sense, we'll be able to look at individual demographic characteristics across the entire university. How are different groups experiencing, perceiving, existing as a part of the graduate and professional student experience, as well as look at specific programs, what those characteristics are, look at colleges. We'll also look at demography and status in the sense that we can be representative, comparative, and targeted in those results. We'll employ SIU's applied research consultants, or ARC, so that we can ensure that it's systematic, representative. We'll also employ best practices in the sense that we're going to develop a project that is standardized and reviewed so that when we do employ it longitudinally or potentially employ it longitudinally, that we have that standardization and we have that ability to compare across years, and we can then engage in that kind of accountability. So in the little image there that is on your right, we have thematic and substantive areas there of what we'll actually be trying to observe in the general sense of outlooks, perceptions, conditions, and general demography. And divided up a number of criteria as far as the draft of all that goes. So, in that sense, what is the work before this committee? The goal so far is to have a survey ready for data collection by November 13th. It's a rather short timeline, just a little bit over a month. But we believe that we'll be able to execute this in part with the expertise of ARC, as well as being able to divide up this work. So in part, that paper that you have is literally the first step of some of the work that we're doing in developing this survey. In addition to that, I'm going to have a solicitation for some background information from all of you that are in attendance today, as well as any representative from a program across the entire campus community. We'll get to that at the very end. Also going to have an area of this committee work that is in the determination of the actual question areas. So some of those aspects of previous slides, they aren't necessarily a final version. We're still going to engage in a little bit of determination, make sure that we get all aspects of different experiences across programs, colleges, departments, etc. And so we'll still have to do some work as far as determination of those areas. And obviously creating the specific questions itself, it's going to be a task before the committee. Also want to engage in sort of using a red team in the absence of actually being able to do a full pilot test on our timeline. We would like to use a red team, essentially persons that have not participated in the construction of the specific questions, taking a first look, and then following up that first look with a review of those questions at ARC itself. Also, the committee, we're probably going to try and develop something in the sense of a participation outreach to make sure that the participation that we have in the survey ends up being representative and that essentially we don't have some kind of bias in non-response, that we're actually getting responses across all these different levels of analysis, whether it's a college, whether it's a program, whether it's the university as a whole, so that it's representative of all the graduate and professional students. And ultimately, we're also going to need persons that are engaged in developing the specific analyses and the comparisons in the report that we will request from ARC itself. And so the last bit that I have for you is the specific tasks that I ask of each one of you as representatives of your respective programs in the sense of this background information. So what I need from all of you is going to be participating in an email that we will deliver to have you follow a link and submit some short vignettes. And so the description of these two short vignettes, they will also be described in the email itself, is this notion of short description vignette describing what persons in your program of study require in order to succeed academically, scholarly, professionally, and personally at SIU as a student, as an employee in the sense of an RA or a graduate assistant, or any of their sort of employment through the university, and so on. And that second aspect is any insights into the unique challenges and or circumstances persons in your program area face in the course of their studies at SIU. So, like I said, you'll get a follow-up email as far as the actual submission of this information. The ideal timeline for doing so would be prior to Tuesday. We have an executive committee meeting for GPSC a week from today, essentially, and I would like some of, or the majority really, of that information, if not all, by that time, so that I can begin that work as a part of this committee and those others that want to join it at that time. And again, with that second form you got today with your agenda, please complete that and submit that to myself, or if you can't find me, one of us as well up here, Jonathan or Diana.
Should they just leave them? I mean, if
Yeah.
this is they don't have to put their names on
Yeah,
it, right?
no,
so
it's
they can
completely
just
anonymous. And then, of course, if you are interested in participating in any one of these aspects of the committee, whether that's the determination of those question areas, creating the specific questions that will end up in the survey itself, being a part of that red team before we send off the finished product to ARC, whether it's participating in the outreach to make sure that we get representational responses, or in determining what kinds of analyses, reports that we request from ARC, you can get a hold of me and we can get you into that sort of project management as a part of the committee, and that would be excellent. And so, yeah, I'll take questions if you have them. I went way over time, though.
So I have a question. I want you to verify what the first question actually is on this survey.
Yeah.
And then 2, because it just says, please rank the following order of best to worst, 1 being the best, 5 the worst, and it says excellent, adequate, and satisfactory.
Yes.
So is that how you want us to order? How do you
order those in, so 1 through 5, 1 being the best, 5 being the worst. Order those in the order that you see the best. So the best one out of those, put 1 next to that. The worst out of it, put 5.
I think there are no items.
But there are no, so I mean, are they saying they like the word excellent the most, or that they like the word inadequate the least? Is that what they're literally doing?
Yeah.
Okay, because that's, okay. And then also, there's,
Yes,
so then
that's
it
intentional.
says-
That is the question.
That's
So,
intentional.
so there's two different copies going out of this. Just to make sure that there's one
Yes,
that only has 2, a yes and a no, and there's one with 4 options.
that is intentional.
It's intentional. Okay. All right, just making sure. It's a little confusing for the the group.
Yeah, it's fine.
All
Yeah,
right.
so for the first question, you're literally ranking those in order of, okay, this is the best out of these options. So in that sense, you very well might think that adequate is better than excellent. So in that way, you would have the number lower for adequate than excellent. Literally just rank those in the order of how you would rank them in the sense of a description. This is the best description of something. This is the worst description of something. That makes more sense? My apologies for lack of clarity.
Lonnie?
Yeah, I was definitely lost. It might be because my department just want to get it. But what is the point?
Do you want me to do that?
No, I mean, like, genuinely, like, why would I rank whether or not
Ranking her.
adequate or satisfactory is better than one or the other? They both describe something that's important.
Yes. So in that sense, I am asking you to prioritize what is essentially the most. No.
Adequate language.
Which word reflects the sort of most praising sort of circumstance? So in that case, say you're describing a meal. Which one of those words describes that meal in the best way, in the sense that it's the best, versus which word describes that meal in the sense of, like, it's very bad? And then ranking those in that order. Yeah.
So, this might be a question we don't really need to get into the mechanics of this, but why not just on the survey ask, rank this 1 to 5, 1 being the most positive, 5 being the most negative? Why even bother with the words, and why not just use the 1 to 5 ranking directly?
So, to be clear, as far as that, it's sort of an internal analysis of how we might actually go about collecting information. And in that sense, I'm trying to get a really quick and dirty sort of understanding of the way that all of you actually comprehend those words. Obviously, the description itself is somewhat limited, which is good data for myself and ultimately the committee, which is good. But in that way, the operant thing I'm trying to consider is the way in which, say, an individual would understand satisfactory is potentially a better description for something, say like GA contract funding, as a better description than excellent. And whether or not there's an agreement on how that is categorized. do persons see satisfactory as better than adequate in the description of a level of funding or their experience on campus or anything? So it's an internal diagnostic to how we actually try to measure questions and whether or not this is a feasible method for doing so.
Okay, one more question in the back, and then I think we can move on.
Yeah, you want the representatives to give you like the vignette information. Is that you just want them to give you their personal perspective, to look at their contracts and say these are the things that are required, to talk to you about the unofficial rules of things that are required and aren't necessarily covered by the contract? Like, what information are you seeking from the representatives?
So, in the capacity as a representative, it is a description of the general characteristics for persons in your program. So, ideally, that would be something that you actually reach out to those other graduate professional students that you represent to be a part of that overall report that you submit. So, limited to personal experience would not be ideal in the sense that you're sort of charged with actual representation of the graduate professional students of your program.
I think she's asking, what exactly do you want to know?
Yeah, that is part of the question. Like, you obviously don't just want our personal experience. But the second part is, so for example, I know in some departments, there are unofficial requirements that you don't get paid for, but if you don't do it, you will be treated differently or receive less things.
Yes.
Are those the sort of things you would also like reported as part of the requirements to gain said degree?
What I would say is that however the graduate and or professional students within your program determine the things that are required in order to succeed academically, scholarly, professionally, and personally as a student in your program are the things that you should include in that description. In part, this is to get a sense of what those things are distributed across all of the programs for the university, which are going to be potentially very, very diverse, as well as there are going to be things that will pop up in some departments, some programs, some individuals' experiences that aren't going to be in others. And so if there's a situation like that, that may be very anecdotal and very unique to one specific sort of area on campus, or it might be something that's more systemic. But what those are is literally what I'm asking persons to submit. So however you and the other persons that are in that program determine that to be part of that requirement, part of what's significant about succeeding, that's what should go in that. And that's not something that I'm making that determination of. I'm literally asking for the subjective understanding of the students within your programs.
So basically all of the above.
Yes.
So one of the things I will say about this attempt is that in my 12 years at this institution, a diagnostic of this sort has never been done. It's been folded into things like HLC reaccreditation or climate surveys, but there has never been a targeted attempt to gather this kind of data about graduate and professional students, which is a problem, particularly when we need to indicate particular areas of improvement for the institution in the graduate and professional student experience. To this end, this is something that is extremely important, mostly because, as we will get to it, there doesn't seem to be a concerted effort on behalf of the institution to actually determine what it needs to do to improve the graduate and professional student experience. So, as part of GPSC's responsibility, as indicated by Clay, we are literally doing this for the university. So, if I could re-emphasize the need to take seriously even the most pedantic bits of this exercise, please do this. Otherwise, it's more difficult to advocate for particular changes to improve the quality of life for graduate and professional students at the institution. Other questions for Clay?
This is a survey. Is this a survey that the administration gets access to the results? How does
The administration will get access to the results in the form of a report that we give to them.
My understanding in the conversations with ARC so far is that the actual data points themselves, in the sense of unanalyzed, unrefined sort of report, literally stays in the custody of ARC. to the fact that we don't even necessarily have access to that unmanipulated, just raw data. We'll just have the reports, and so those exact reports that we submit to the university itself, that will be the only sort of wide open public dissemination, foyable kind of information. That's how it's been explained to me.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, then we'll move on with our next agenda item. So thank you everyone who took our brief survey on our final exam questionnaire or polling. At our last general body meeting, we were told about the work being done by the final exam committee, looking at ways to improve our final exam schedule moving forward. So there are 6 quick questions that I asked of you. So should SIUC keep the current scheduling model? Everyone voted no. Should math and English common exams be separated? Everyone voted yes. Should accommodations be allowed for students with 4 exams scheduled in one day? Everyone voted yes. Should accommodations be allowed for students with 3 back-to-back exams in one day? Everyone voted yes. So this is where really they needed our input, is whether or not to look at optimizing the semester of or using the previous semester. So based on this, the majority of you are interested in using the data from the current semester, which would be the best optimization, and that would also mean that final exam schedules would not be available to us until 3 weeks into the semester, or 4 weeks into the semester. So that was a strong lean. I mean, it was about 75% lean that way and 25% the other. So I don't know if you all feel confident in those results. We can go back to the committee and say that that was what was decided overall by our body. Any comments or questions, or would you like this brought to a larger vote now that it's brought in front of everyone? I think this is something we can move forward on, though.
I just moved to send it.
All right, so I'm going to motion to just send forward our agreement to those first 5 questions. It seemed like everyone was unanimous, or the first 4, everyone was unanimous on that, and then just say that we, based on our polling, suggest the best optimization. All right, sounds good. Easy breezy, quick and fast. Thank you.
Our next item under new business is item D, RSO guidelines. So there are current RSO guidelines on the GPSC website. I distributed an edited copy of those to every representative. Of note, it strikes out many of the reporting responsibilities of potential RSOs. It also eliminates many of the other reporting responsibilities of RSOs, as they were viewed as additionally burdensome, both on the executive and the RSOs in general. It also eliminates the responsibility of RSOs to provide representatives to GPSC, as this would also unnecessarily inflate the general body. What was added to the guidelines was structures for a RSO to become the representative body for their department, which GPSC currently lacks. So as it stands, there is nothing in any of the GPSC governing documents that establishes how an RSO becomes the representative RSO for the department. This is a problem because, per the Constitution, GPSC solicits reps from departmental organizations. If no such organization exists, then there is a procedure for soliciting reps from that department. In order to increase and at least maintain this, the number of reps to GPSC, I included a structure for becoming a departmental rep, which is modeled on the university's own structure for the approval of student constituency groups. So it is consistent with existing university policy for recognizing constituency groups, which essentially a departmental RSO would be. The other thing that it does is specifically indicate that these policies do not obtain for the School of Law. The School of Law has particular requirements for membership, for organization formation, and other such minutiae that are not under the purview of GPSC. It was explained to me that these actually are under the purview of the ABA. So it is my view that GPSC should have no authority over that. In conjunction with that, and by request of our representatives from the School of Law, I did reach out to student development and inform them of the distinctions between organizations at the law school and organizations on the main campus, particularly where membership requirements are concerned. So it is likely that you will no longer receive those OrgSync emails or the pestering emails asking you to do other such things. Law school, you're welcome. So law school organizations are now the complete responsibility of the School of Law. GPSC has no authority over those organizations except to provide event funding. So the thing with policies is they get a first reading. Having submitted said document to the representatives, if you have any concerns about them, I will open the floor for discussion.
And this was sent out when I sent out the information about our upcoming meeting was one of the attachments. So if you need to take a moment and look at that, feel free to. But if you don't have any questions or anything to comment on at this time, totally understood as well.
I will also accept comments via email all the way up to our next meeting where I would present the revised version. All right, if there's no further discussion, then I will move to officer and committee reports, starting with Clay. What you got for us, Clay?
All right. Graduate Council actually meets this week, Thursday, and so I do not have a report from its general body meeting. As far as things that have been going on in Grad Council, there are some resolutions that are scheduled for that meeting on Thursday related to new programs and some ed policies. Apart from that, a lot of what was discussed at executive just related to what was then communicated as a part of the Chancellor's State of the University address, which Jonathan, you will handle. Other than that, there have been some conversations in relation to time to degree for graduate students. And as that conversation evolves, I will let you know what's going on there. Basically, there is a concern with graduate students that are taking 6 or more years to complete a PhD. That's after the completion of a master's degree. And whether or not there needs to be changes within the graduate handbook, the policies, to actually address that situation. As well as there is going to be some efforts within some of the committees on how graduate assistants are funded, and it potentially might affect the actual number of contracts that are awarded across both contracts that are funded through grants as well as contracts that are essentially funded through the graduate college. And both of those are being sent to committees in order to work on them, so we should be getting information as a part of, one, our representation on those committees, research and ed policies, as well as from the general body itself. And that's really all I have from Grad Council Affairs. And then diversity and inclusivity, we should be holding a meeting within the next couple of weeks. So anyone that hasn't taken the opportunity to potentially participate in that, you can reach out to me. Otherwise, we'll have some for that coming up shortly. And that is the rest.
All right, the fee allocation board met prior to this meeting just to touch base on certain topics. We would discuss the continuation of supporting international student taxes. And what I mean by that is when international students are awarded travel funding or research funding from GPSC, like let's say they are awarded $75. Well, they might only receive $50 in the mail because those taxes are pulled from their country. And so we feel that it's important not to false advertise, and we'd like to continue saying if we're going to give you $75, that we give $75. And so that then just has to play with our budget lines. And so we've kind of negotiated that, knowing that providing a little bit more space, especially in our travel budget for that. And then also we just reviewed our funding documents. There's just some things that we're going to be changing, really minor things, but you'll notice that hopefully that creates a little bit more clarity as you're filling out those documents or as you're navigating the website. So kind of choosing to change some of the language just to add clarity So nothing will change procedurally, just the clarity of the documents. We also then talked about fundraising opportunities moving forward for our foundation fund. Some of the things we talked about are definitely those easy ones that, kind of are, you get a portion of the tab. So looking at different businesses where if we were to invite ourselves and, members from our departments to go and join, that will support travel funding and scholarships in the upcoming year. And then we just kind of, and then that's pretty much that. I think I also talked about some other opportunities of, by creating those events, we can also create more mixer type of opportunities for us as graduate students, create a little bit more of a communal environment. Obviously, we're kind of stuck in this tight room, looking at each other, going over a lot of administrative work. But it might be kind of nice to have something a little bit more casual for us to meet at and know each other outside of these walls. And so we also felt that that was really important as well by forming those type of fundraising events. And then finally, just looking at what's remaining in our budgets, we've allocated $1,200 towards travel funding, so we have $17,800 left. And that, also in event funding, we've allocated $1,700, so we have $10,925 left in that, and we've also allocated $900 towards our graduate support funding, so we have $100 left in that. Any questions, comments? That is all from my report.
Okay, so last week I had the opportunity to attend the State of the University address, which a slide of which is displayed behind me. So, of note in the Chancellor's State of the University address there was no information concerning graduate education, none at all. The reason I mention this is it is a marked difference from Interim Chancellor Caldwell's State of the University address, where he specifically indicated the need to address some areas of concern in graduate education. So to be clear, there was nothing in here aimed at graduate students. That being said, what is displayed behind me is Chancellor Montemagno's intentions where the reorganization of the institution is concerned. So what he intends to do, and the complete text of his State of the University address is on the Chancellor's website. What he intends to do is restructure programs into schools and schools into colleges. It is unclear where departments are going to go, but it is highly likely that departments will vanish and then programs will just be listed in their schools. There are a couple of issues with doing this, particularly by his date of July the 1st, I believe, as it would involve rewriting departmental operating papers or scrapping them altogether, restructuring some elements of the graduate catalog, particularly how graduate students are admitted to their programs, as well as reorganizing different elements of degree approval. This is going to be a massive undertaking, and it is a point of concern that it does not specifically address graduate education, especially as the loss of departments is going to affect a lot of things, from our assistantships to the available courses we can take, to advisement, to who's actually sitting on our admissions committees. If you no longer have departments, faculty from, say, other programs may be eligible to sit on admissions or dissertation or advisement committees, which might be a problem until there are firm, until the Chancellor says something about graduate education. I'm going to take all of this with a grain of salt, but finding the answer to that question will be probably the single direction of my communications with the Chancellor, and frequent as they are. HLC reaccreditation. The reaccreditation steering committee met last week, where we were presented with a shell of the assurance argument. To be clear, the HLC reaccreditation committee is charged with presenting an assurance argument to the higher learning committee that we are meeting the 5 criterion. Last GPSC meeting, we appointed representatives to all 5 of the subcommittees, 2 to one of the committees, which we were granted. I shared this draft version with our committee reps and incorporated all of their feedback into one large response to the chair of the reaccreditation steering committee. If you are a HLC subcommittee rep and you have not given me your feedback on the draft that I sent to you, please do so before Friday, as I will be, again, submitting any additional commentary by then. Aside from that, one of the things that stands out in this document, and one of the reasons why I wanted more representation on the subcommittees, is that it does not address graduate student experience at this institution. Right? It is a shockingly undergraduate-focused document, and in my view, if the institution wishes to assure HLC that it is meeting its criteria, it must meet those criteria not only with respect to undergraduate education, but with respect to graduate education. The current draft does not. Questions? Would you like to see the draft? Okay, so that's a yes. All right. I'm going to need a motion for that.
A motion that I want to see the draft.
So having received a motion from the council as a whole, I will distribute that draft, right? The subcommittee initially asked me for my own perspective, and I delivered it to the subcommittee reps. But since the body as a whole, by motion, wants to see it, I will give it to you. I expect that this evening. Other than that, we had one graduate RSO that we approved using the previous best practices. To note, before there is a question about which policy which set of policies we use to approve this RSO, over the summer, or 2 summers ago, Willie, Brandon, and I used a variation on the student development's RSO approval process to approve an RSO, which essentially required the executive committee to vote on said RSO because we did not have a policy that would allow us to do that. I followed the same process with the new graduate RSO, which would be a college student personnel professional honor society. So subsequently, we approved that RSO. Aside from that, I have nothing else to report. Item D, GPSC representatives, updates from your committees. Are there any updates?
I met with the Intercollegiate Athletics Advisory Committee today. Nothing really huge. A lot of it's confidential, so I can't really share. But there definitely will be some quick actions and decisions that are going to be made, particularly, as I mentioned last time, in supporting our female athletes here on campus and providing more opportunities for them. And so you can definitely see some things. And so they are looking at some options of either forming a whole new athletic team for a female division that would go with our Missouri conference. I don't really want to reveal because I don't want to get any hopes up if they choose a different path. But you definitely will see that. It'll probably be implemented by the end of this year. So going into the next academic year.
I am the chair of a committee with a really long name that essentially is updating and creating a new training program for students surrounding the Violence Against Women Act and Title IX. So if you or any graduate students you know are particularly interested in this topic, please let me know, and I will add them to the committee. And undergraduates, because that's where our main target is.
I met 2 weeks ago with the Honorary Degrees and Distinguished Service Awards Committee, so if there's anyone you would like to nominate for an honorary degree or a Distinguished Service Award, then let me know. We are taking nominations.
So I met with the Assistant Dean of the Graduate School Search Committee. We have narrowed our gigantic list of applicants down to, I believe, 5 applicants that we're going to bring in for Skype interviews as the process moves forward. So that is all I have on that one. I did meet with the Diversity Council on Monday, and we are in preparations for our meeting with the Chancellor.
There was something actually that we discussed in the FAB committee, which I forgot to bring in my report, and that we are forming a subcommittee within FAB that will be producing and helping to create professional workshops for those in the room, as well as for other graduate students here on campus. Some of them, for example, could be like CV writing, how to submit journals, or things like that that are practical and useful for all graduate level students. That kind of like, it's like behind the curtain type of thing. This is the real ins and outs in a very personal kind of way, in a more intimate type of setting where you don't feel necessarily that intimidation from asking those simple questions. So we hope to have that to provide everyone, both from the law school, from our other professional departments, and our academic departments that can further them professionally.
Other committee reports?
All right. And then also, I have connected most people with their committee contact, but if you haven't, it's mainly because I don't know who the chair is currently, and so I'm just trying to figure out who those people are, and but I hope to get that done and get you connected by the end of the week. There's still a few slots open. I know that there are some people who are interested. Please come see me after. We certainly are. You're welcome to have 2 people attend, and if they tell us to boot one of you, they tell us to boot one of you. But we're hoping that we could just have that voice in the room, and we haven't had any conflicts thus far. So just see me afterwards, and I will put your name down and get you connected.
As of yet, I was once told no, and then I told them that I was going to send them anyway, and they took the 2 members anyway. So there you have it. If there are no other committee updates, I'd like to move to roundtable discussion announcements. Are there any announcements?
So there's a mental health wellness fair at the mall on October 14th from 1 to 3. It's a free event. This information was circulated through the Women's Task Force on campus, and so they recommend anybody that wants to go. It's just a free event. You don't have to register for it. You just show up between 1 and 3 on October 14th at the mall.
There are no other announcements. Item A on item 6 of our agenda set is a basic question that I want to ask. What does your department need, and are there any problems that GPSC needs to address within your departments? Part of our mandate is to look into student welfare, and that's pretty much everything. So if there is a concern you're having within your department, something that you feel GPSC should address, let us know. As an example, following our last meeting with Dean Lee, one of the things that I did do was reach out to Dean Lee concerning the timeliness with which international students and graduate students themselves are receiving their notifications of reappointment or lack of appointment, and kind of badgered him about ensuring that people get those things in a timely manner. I will follow up with Dean Lee about that later on this week. But that is the kind of thing that if you have a problem with, you can bring it to GPSC. If we cannot address it, we can find somebody who will. So are there any items of concern? That's fine. Anyone else? I mean, we did just have somebody request a building, so apparently the sky is the limit. And actually, if I'm going to be real honest, that's a valid
that's a
request.
valid thing. It's not like you're just asking for a more centralized unit to conduct your courses. I think that's a pretty common request.
I think that would actually be incredibly possible for them to achieve, considering that they're trying to consolidate different, schools and do different things. I mean, if they're going to be shuffling people around, then I don't see why we couldn't put the whole art and design group in one.
Yeah. But one of those is an off-campus, or I'm not going to call it off-campus, but it's a gallery more so. Is that right?
No, it's Studio Spaces and it has a gallery attached.
Okay.
The biggest issue is that we're one of the largest schools and one of the largest colleges.
Mm-hmm.
other issues that GPSC needs to look into?
Not an issue, but maybe something we could look into communication-wise. I know whenever the environmental club, biology students came to the FAB board, they weren't aware that there was like an environmental law society that they could pair up with, maybe do events with. Maybe some exchanging of information of events the schools are having with each other. That way we can attend each other's events. I don't know about the other schools. The law school has something almost every single day, a lecture on something from a visiting professor.
Yeah.
And it's very pertinent to all fields, and I'd like to, if there's other things I can attend to other schools, I think.
Is that something that, because I don't necessarily, I know that you probably will get a lot of emails from me, from Jonathan, from us throughout the year. Is that something that you would like to see maybe more like an event calendar on our website, or something that can link you to like graduate level events?
Like if we shoot you a message like,
Right.
here's the things we have this month for us, maybe put
I
on
think
a big
that's very
calendar.
doable without having to saturate like your
Yeah.
emails with like, everything that's coming up all the time. If that makes sense. So you have to receive an email from me every 2 days. So yeah, if you want to direct those directly to me or anybody or any of us, we can get that onto the website and we can create a tab that will have and promote your upcoming events or different things that are happening within your academic units.
And if it persuades anybody, we always have like pretty good food at all our events. For
Ooh,
lunch, like after school and
winner,
free,
winner,
so,
chicken
yeah.
dinner.
We had El Paisano one of them today. And
Nice.
Well, then when is your next event then?
I'll give
It's
it the-
tomorrow.
I know, I'm like,
I
what?
was just using.
Mama's gonna eat. All right, I definitely could do that. Anything else?
Yeah.
Seriously, let me know. I will come.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I really will.
Somewhat related to that previous idea of getting involved with across departments, having networking from different departments as well for different things, I think would be a great idea, or points of contact, right? Especially for students when they get to say, when they need to go outside of their main area to get information right outside their department, or they need support with something like a finding outside reader or something. Probably be a lot easier to go, oh, I know so and so, let me talk to them, instead of cold emailing upon professors or trying to track down the school and find out what you need instead of going to someone who could direct you with that. And it would be reciprocal.
We do have our current list of the graduate.
Yeah,
we don't
that-
have like I don't know if we have the presidents, but we have at least the graduate.
DGSs.
Yes.
Yeah, we can do that real quickly.
And what I mean by that is that we do have a list of every department's director of graduate students or affairs or whatever that is for their department. And so we can list that, and they could be that channel of quick communication of who to access. So if they have multiple RSOs, or if they don't really have like a formal student group, they can at least let you know who some of the leaders are within those departments or who is conducting what. And I think that might be an easy channel. So you can just have that accessible to you. Would that make sense, or would you rather have more of like presidents of RSOs listed, or?
Oh, no, that's
Are you saying like to list, this is context specific to Diana, like list the nils?
The NILs.
Because I think he's saying that the cold system of emailing like a professor for help is not helpful, and that we need more graduate student networking, right?
right. So, or at least some combination of the two. I was just.
Well, I could do this two-folded. I could also contact those individuals and have them, I mean, they have all sent to you as wonderful representatives, so there's also the access of everyone in this room. If people are okay with that, I'm more than happy to list the names of our representatives as well as email addresses, but I don't know if you'd feel comfortable with that. And so to create a resource amongst each other, to know who your departmental representatives are, and that way you can create a network with each other first. But if not, I can reach out to those graduate directors and see if they might also provide a student of contact for each of their departments. And if they don't, then we just have the graduate director as the list of contact for that department. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, all
It's basically a contacts page on the GPSC website.
Okay.
So my undergraduate experience here, I was in industrial design, and I was working on level application testing device. And I had to
We're actually working on that. Mm-hmm. If there,
Our administrator and the RSO are both asking me to bring up how they secure funding for travel. They knew about the $50, they're asking about $150 through you, through the grad school.
Yeah, so there's two opportunities. So they can ask both the graduate school and also GPSC. So that's something that can channel through both. What I would also make sure that they understand is that those are two separate applications. So we've been receiving applications that it kind of have the expectation that they're both in one, and so then I'm like have to go back to them. I'm like, oh, I have to resubmit this to you so that you can submit it proper, like this way and this to them. So just make sure that you are sending in two different applications, one to the graduate school and one to us.
Are those like online?
Yeah, so the information is available on our website, so you'll see the application form there. And then you would just bring that to our office, we'll review that, really the documentation that you need, or let me just explain it even further. So if you're just going to an event and just watching, you're not actually presenting at a conference, you're allowed to request $75. If you're presenting at an event, you're allowed to request $150. So just where you know where the 150 is. If you by chance, just go to, but you max out at 150 in the academic year. So once you've asked for that 150, it's all that we can provide you. You can ask for 275 requests though throughout the academic year, which will then max you out at that 150. And so that information is just on our website. You just fill out that application form. Primarily, the other documentation that we'll need is like your registration. That shows the document that shows that you actually registered, you paid for registration, or if the registration is free, a registration documentation. If you're presenting some sort of like acceptance of presentation, we all get that. It's like you've been accepted to present at this conference, and so just something to prove that you're presenting. And then if you also want to demonstrate some of the other expenses that you might have as far as traveling, your airline costs, your hotel costs, things like that, all work as far as proof of your expenses. I'm not too sure what the graduate schools looks like, but I can. I've been meaning to link that though, so that it can be quickly accessed from our page as well. So I'll make a note on that.
all right. If there are no other concerns, before I adjourn the meeting, the one thing that I want to say is in the next couple of months, you may see a whole pile of surveys coming out from different institutional arms. It is extremely important that you fill out those surveys, even if they're just pedantic stuff from the HLC or something more important from Student Affairs or even something from us. The institution apparently is leaning heavily on the presentation of quantitative data in the form of surveys in order to determine decision makings and priorities. Participation in these surveys, particularly by graduate and professional students, is extremely important, as the institution has rarely gone out of its way to ask us for information. I can cite as example Chancellor Montemagno's Future of the University survey, to which only 3,000 people responded. And he is using that as part of the basis for his plan moving forwards. I don't know about you, but there are more than 3,000 students on this campus. There are more than 3,000 graduate students. So it is on us to participate in these survey mechanisms, even if you don't quite see the point, even if you find them boring.
Where do those surveys come from?
They typically go to your SIU email address. They come from, depending on what it is, it'll come from the Office of the Chancellor, the Office of Student Affairs.
I don't think the law
They
school.
normally show up on D2L, don't they?
Sometimes they show up on D2L, which is a problem.
Yeah, I don't know that we receive those notices at the law school.
Really?
Good to know.
I will add that to my
I've
list of
never-
things.
I've never seen this before, ever.
While he's typing that, and before we adjourn, remember to fill this out very quickly. Just bring it up front, or you can just pass it down in one big motion, and I'll collect those for you. And also, please take some pizza. Stick around and eat a slice of pizza. I don't want to take that pizza home.
I will not take it home because it will be a bad time for me.
Eat that pizza, please.
All right, before you guys leave, motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right.
All in favor?
Second.
Hey, we got out of here in an hour. So.
Yay! Yay! Hour! Yay!
Cut the mic.
Eat that.